We're live.
All right. Happy Sabbath, everyone. Good to be back. I'm excited about this lesson. And today we're actually talking about continuing the lesson with small groups. So let's start off with a word of prayer. Deanna, if you're there, would you mind having a prayer for us? If not, Abraham, ¿nos puedes dirigir en oración?
Vamos a orar. Amante Padre que estás en los cielos, te agradecemos porque una vez más estamos aquí reunidos, mi Dios, es por medio de este red social, mi Dios, que tenemos la oportunidad, Padre, aunque sea de esta manera, pero para mantener nosotros, mi Dios, estar lleno de ti. Aunque extrañamos estar en grupos físicamente y vernos en la iglesia, pero por las situaciones que no se puede. Pero mi Dios, espero que cada uno de nosotros que participemos y las personas que nos acompañan, mi Dios, que salgamos bendecidos de lo que nos traes en esta tarde. Bendice a cada joven que va a participar y a cada joven que nos está viendo, mi Dios, bendícelos y que seas tú quien dirige este programa. Todo lo ponemos en tus manos y que todo lo que hagamos y lo que digamos sea para glorificar tu nombre. Eso te lo pido en el nombre de Cristo Jesús. Amén.
Amen. Gracias, Abraham. Muy bien. So today's lesson, we're talking about specifically testimony. We're talking about testimonies and how powerful they can be. And we know this, like, I think we've all been in a theological discussion or a theological argument where it's like, this is right, no, this is right, no, this is right. And, you can go back and forth, like with the Sabbath, with the sanctuary, with all of these themes. You can keep going back and forth. But one thing that no one can ever doubt, or one thing that no one can ever argue against, is your own personal testimony. It's what you've gone through and how the Bible has come to life in your life. So that's exactly what we're going to be talking about this week. And we're starting off with Sunday. Rachel, it's your turn.
Hello. So Sunday talks about how, in a way, we need to have God in our lives. We need it, or else we don't have true happiness. As Christians, we all have a personal story to tell, and a story of how Jesus has changed our lives and what he has done for us. Before Christ, we're just living lives. It's great to, work really hard, to have a great job, to have a great, family, love life. But those things don't truly bring you happiness in the end. You're gonna have them, but everything has an ending. In a way, we're just gonna, not to be gloomy, we're all gonna pass away, and you kind of wonder, at least a lot of people have once asked themselves, what's the point of life? What's the meaning of life? Like, why am I here? What is gonna drive you to push forward? And I think for many people, including myself, it's been Christ, it's been religion, it's been God, it's been, pushing towards something, finding happiness in church. And so I've taught that to many of my friends, when they ask me about, like, why do you try so hard in church? Why do you go to church every Saturday? Like, don't you get tired? Isn't that your only day off? And yeah, but like, I find peace in going to church every Saturday. Obviously right now with the pandemic, it's been a little bit difficult. But we each have to find our own way to still get that love from God, learning on our own. And
hi. So it gives a portion about before and after in Ephesians, before we knew Christ, and it gives some portions about how it's saying, before we knew, we were dead in trespasses and sins, walking the course of this world. As a personal testimony, it was hard. I'd always been in the church, and I always wanted to be a child of Christ, to love God, to follow his example, to have him lead me. But there's a difference in that and wanting it and accepting God in your life, and I feel like I finally did that a little after graduating high school. I was maybe 17, 18, and you know, they had did a calling. I baptized at 7, and they did a calling around 18 or 19, and I chose to baptize again. Not because, you know, I felt like I'd sinned again, or I'd you know, done such a horrible thing, although I do feel at that moment I felt I was a sinner and I had done so much wrong in my life. But it was more of the fact that I wanted this to be an open testimony that my life was in God's hands. And you know, it's crazy to see how much I have changed, you know. You know, me as a teenager, I was so angry, I was so frustrated with the way the world was. And you know, now in my life, I you know, regardless, sometimes I do have anxiety, I have, you know, depression, I have, you know, anger as well, but it is nowhere near that. And I always find a way, and you know, God always finds a way to alleviate that. And there's so much joy and happiness in knowing that my problems are in God's hands.
Yeah. So a lot of times we have to find a way with Christ to fill in that emptiness so we can have testimony for others, you know, whether it takes you many years, you know, as long as you find it in the end, we can be that living proof that God can bring you happiness and fill you with joy. It mentions, John declares, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. John 1:4. That's what Sunday talks about.
Hey, thanks so much, Rachel. Anybody have any comments on Sunday? I really want to look at this passage that it shares there, Ephesians 2. If we can go there, Ephesians 2, 1 through 10. As Rachel was mentioning, it's talking about a life after Christ, and you know, the life in the church and everything. But I really like how it talks about life before and then after Christ. So Ephesians 2, 1 through 10. Joanna, you might. Oh, yes.
Never mind. You're good.
Oh, okay, sure.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, sorry. I volunteered before.
You're good.
Ephesians 1 starts, and you he made alive, you who were dead in trespasses and sin, in which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of power of the air, of the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all once conducted ourselves in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just as the others. But God,
sorry, Caroline. Pause right there. So this is life before Christ. Did you guys catch anything that was? What are some things that we were living before Christ from those first verses?
Lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind.
Yeah, lust of flesh, definitely. Anything else that you guys caught?
children of wrath.
We were children of wrath.
Children of wrath. Okay. Anything else you guys see there? I also see dead in trespasses and sin. So we were dead in sin. We also have walking according to the course of this world. So it seems as though a lot of these things are focused on worldly things, like lustful things, according to the flesh, according to sin. This was life before Christ. But then it talks about life after Christ. So let's go ahead. Caroline, if you want to continue, 4 through 10, life after Christ.
But God, who is rich in mercy, because of his great love in which with he loved us, even when we were dead in trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved, and raised us up together, and made us sit together in heavenly places in Christ Jesus, that in the ages to come he might show in exceeding riches of his grace and his kindness toward us in Jesus Christ. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and not of yourselves, not and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Jesus Christ for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them.
So this is life after Christ. What are some characteristics that you see here after Christ? Anything that you guys see? And one of the ones I see is alive in Christ. So first we were dead in sin. Now we're alive in Christ. Anything else you guys see? I also see the word grace. Grace is receiving something good that you didn't deserve. So I think that's another cool thing. Menya, did you have something? Oh, grace. You're familiar with grace, right? Yeah. All right. Anything else that you guys see after Christ? Now I have a question, a follow-up question with these two thoughts. So we know life before Christ and we know life after Christ. This is just a question. You don't have to answer me, or actually preferably not. Where are you? Are you still living a life before Christ? Or are you still living a life, or are you now living a life with Christ, after he has come into your life and made your life better? Just something to meditate on as we continue with Monday, which is menu.
Yes. So Monday, the title of it is The Transformative Power of Personal Testimony. And I like the example it gives us here. It talks about John and James, how we all know they were known as the sons of thunder. And I didn't know, but it was the Sabbath school lesson says, in fact, it was Jesus who gave them their nicknames. And for me, that was like, wow. And there, you know, it talks about a life story they had where they were going to Samaria, right? And there was a bad relationship between Jews and Samaritans. And they were trying to look for a place to stay pretty much. And they couldn't find one. And then John and James tell Jesus, they tell him, hey, should we pray so there could be fire that consumes these people like Elijah prayed, and that, you know? And I mean, when I read that, it's kind of funny to me now, but it was like, you know, these guys were telling Jesus that, you know, should we pray for these people to be consumed? If you think about it, man, that's crazy. I mean, just to have that attitude, right? And then after that, if you go on to read 1 John chapter 1, or actually most of the whole book, is John, you know, he's writing there, and the main thing that he focuses on there is love. He's the one, and one of my favorite verses that he wrote on there is, you know, it's very well known. It's 1 John 4:8. He says, you know, he who does not love does not know God, because God is love. You know, it was him who said that, the guy that asked Jesus one time if he could pray so other people can be consumed. You know, and you just see that transformative power that he had, well, you know, just by walking next to Jesus. And I think in the same way, you know, and like Johnny mentioned in the beginning, you know, nobody can argue with your testimony, you know. And personally, I have seen it firsthand too, you know. I mean, growing up, I used to be a person who liked to argue. I consider myself as a person who just was always open to an argument, and I loved it. You know, it just, I don't know why, but then I started realizing, you know, that's not what Jesus would do, right? That's not how he would react to this. And my ways started changing, you know. I started getting to know Jesus, and I started to want to be like Jesus. And, you know, it's also in marriage, you see that a lot. You see that transformative power, you know. And, you know, being married to Grace almost for 3 years now, it's like we've learned that whenever we both have a relationship with Jesus, our relationship with each other is a lot better. But if we've stopped, you know, like studying the word, or we've stepped away from it, even if it's 2 days or maybe 3 days because we've been busy with work or we've been putting it aside, it shows in our relationship. We're less patient with each other. We probably argue a lot more over little things that are so insignificant, you know. But whenever we're studying the word, we're learning about God. It's like, I'm not lying to you. We don't argue. We just, you know, we cherish each other a lot more. We love each other a lot more. And it's just the power of Jesus that does that. You know, it's like I mean, like the title says, it's indeed a transformative power. And it's something that we got to believe in. You know, maybe a lot of us have that family member, that sibling, that father-in-law, you know, who you've been praying for. And maybe sometimes, you know, we think that there's no hope. But I mean, I encourage you to keep praying and just keep, if he doesn't want to hear you speak about God, just, you know, through your own testimony, you know, show him, and, you know, there will be a change one day. There's definitely power with Jesus.
Thanks so much, man. So you're recommending marriage? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, with the right partner.
All right. Awesome. I really want to read this quote. It's on the lesson from Ellen White, Desire of Ages, page 22. If you guys have it, it says, "The exercise of force is contrary to the principles of God's government. He desires only the service of love, and love cannot be commanded. It cannot be won by force or authority. Only by love is love awakened." And that made me think, like, if you're loving towards someone, more than likely they're going to be loving towards you. And that reflects. It reflects. And if you see here, as Manuel was mentioning in the story of John, bro, I think it's so funny because his attitude, look, in Luke 9, I'll read it real quick. Luke 9, 54, whenever he said, what you said, he said this. James and John saw this and they said, "Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them just as Elijah did?" This dude is like, I can command fire to come down. And he's like, do you want us to destroy them because of what they did to us? That's crazy. And you look at that attitude, and then, like you said, you go to 1 John and you read his books, and it's like, oh, he changed. How did he change? Because he was with Jesus. Love awakens love. He became a loving person. And honestly, his book is one of the most loving books, the book of John, one of the most loving books. Love awakens love. He was with Jesus, therefore he became a loving person. Anybody have anything to add on this on Monday? If not, I want to dwell on a thought. It's the question from the bottom of Monday. It says, how well do you reflect the love of Christ to others? Anybody have any thoughts on that? I'm just thinking to myself, like, whenever I'm so for instance, I don't know if you guys have heard this growing up. It was always the saying of, like, if I insult you, it's because I really like you. I don't know if you guys went through that stage where people call each other like hey ugly, you know, that, like, that's a compliment. You know what I mean? Like, if I insult you, I really like you. It's like, okay, are you sure? You know what I mean? Like love awakens love. Are we nice to each other, or are we mean to our own friends? Like, how do we interact with those around us? Do we reflect love, or, you know what I mean? Anybody have any comments on anything about that question? How well do you reflect love? Yeah.
Not so much on the question, but like whenever I hear this story of what's his name? John. I feel like I identify with it a lot because I'm the type of person who, like, if someone did me wrong, you know, or if something bad happened to someone that I care for, that's my initial reaction, you know, like I would have been like, do you want me to bring fire down upon these people? And so whenever, like, I hear this story and then I see little changes in my life, I'm like, I just can't be more sure that there is, you know, that transformative power through Jesus, because and not only me and John, I've seen a lot of other people, you know, who have softened up, and I'm like, what? How does that happen? You know, it's interesting to see how that happens. So that's like, to me, hearing everything, that's just like the main thing on my mind, that it's not something that, like, I feel like I fully grasp entirely, but it makes me want to know more, you know, and get closer to God, because it's like, man, I feel like, you know, if we did understand that, a lot of us can be way different people than what we are now. Not to say that, you know, we're bad people.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
To answer your question, you know, how to reflect the love of Christ to others. I think it's easier to reflect that love to somebody in need, but I think the point where it really shows is when you show love to somebody that has done you wrong, right? And that's where it really shows. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have gone through this, you know, but being 7-day Adventists, just the fact that we don't eat pork, you know, it creates just a lot of room for just younger guys to make fun of you and just, you know, like, or just because you're the Sabbath keeper, right? I mean, you're being made fun of a lot. And our reaction to that could be either, you know, get mad or just be humble about it, you know? And back in the day, yeah, I would get mad, but now it's just, you know, I'm just humble about it, you know? Just pray for those guys and, you know, just keep wishing, you know, the best for them and don't argue with them. And I mean, in a sense, it doesn't cover the whole question, but I mean, I think that's one way of just showing love, just.
Thanks, man. Anybody else have anything else on Monday?
I just kind of wanted to add like something I felt like kind of backing up to the question and what Marlon and Manny were saying. I think one of the biggest quotes that I've read, it came from a book, but it said this. It said, every person has context to them. Even if you don't know the context, it's still there. So that quote, like, it made me think that, you know, every person in this world, their character was formed by something, you know, and something happens. Something happened to them. Someone did them wrong or something. So a lot of times, you know, whenever we encounter people like that, is because, you know, people that like don't love you, I guess you could say, like, it's usually because of a reason that happened or something that happened to them, you know, when they were younger or in the past or just recently, you know. So I think when you learn something like that, like that they're going through something, then it kind of makes you think like, well, at least it makes me think that, you know, it's not about me. It's something that at least they're going through, you know. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I agree with you because, like, at least in my experience, the times that I've dealt with bullies, most of them were bullies because they themselves were bullied by someone bigger than them. And so they would bully people smaller than them. And I'm not condemning, I'm not excusing their behavior, but yeah, everything has a context to it, definitely. Anybody else? Anything for Monday? If not, we can go to Tuesday. Abraham?
Sí, es muy interesante la lección porque el que estamos hablando, ¿no? Del lunes, el testimonio personal, yo creo que es una de las cosas más difíciles que nosotros podemos hacer como cristianos, especialmente así ustedes que son más jóvenes, es de demostrar a otros el amor de Dios, especialmente cuando es alguien que solo se la vive insultando a uno o haciendo como bullying, como vienen diciendo, ¿verdad? Es muy difícil y creo que nosotros la única manera que podemos llevar lo opuesto a esto y demostrarles amor, esto depende de nuestra relación con Dios, ¿verdad? Y hablando ya del día martes, dice contar la historia de Jesús. Yo creo que cada uno de nosotros ahorita tenemos tantas cosas que contar de nuestra experiencia personal que nos ha pasado, que donde Dios ha obrado en nuestra vida. Y la lección habla de las dos personas que eran endemoniados, ¿verdad? En realidad aquí nada más menciona uno, pero eran dos y fueron dos liberados por Jesús, ¿verdad? Solo cuando yo estaba leyendo aquí Marcos 5, 1 al 17, es mucho para leerlo, pero creo que la mayoría de nosotros ya conocemos la historia de que esos hombres endemoniados, desde que uno de ellos lo encadenaba, ¿y qué es lo que hacía? Rompía la cadena como que fuera un hilo pequeño, ¿verdad? se imaginan qué tanta fuerza, pero de que tenía ese hombre, pero en realidad no era fuerza humana, era fuerza de demonios que él estaba poseído. Pero ¿qué pasó cuando vieron a Jesús? ¿Verdad que se asustaron? Porque incluso el diablo tiene temor a Dios. Y entonces, ¿qué es lo que pasó allí? Le dice uno de los enemigos que ¿por qué me atormentas? Simplemente con la presencia de Jesús, ¿verdad? Y ya conocemos de que Jesús le quitó esos demonios y se le pasaron a los cerdos, ¿verdad? Pero lo más interesante aquí era que, ¿por qué Jesús no quiso que esos hombres lo acompañaran a él? Porque recordemos que estos hombres, antes de que Jesús los liberara, yo me imagino que ellos ni siquiera habían escuchado de Jesús. Imagínense estos hombres que estaban atormentando a la gente porque por la misericordia de Dios y por la gracia de Dios, digo yo de que nunca, bueno, al menos yo no sé ustedes, nunca han visto una persona, ¿verdad?, que está poseído. Pero yo me imagino el temor que puede causar una persona así porque no está actuando como naturalmente. Y es algo más, un poder que recordemos que Satanás tiene poder, pero nuestro Dios está sobre Satanás, pero aún así nosotros como seres humanos nos atemorizamos, ¿verdad? Especialmente si nuestra comunión con Dios no está tan estrecha, ¿verdad? Es aún peor la cosa. Pero yo me imagino que esta gente yo creo que no, ni se querían, ni querían pensar de que alguna vez se cruzaron con esa persona que estaba poseído, porque imagínense lo que podría hacer, ¿verdad? Pero ¿qué pasa? Que cuando los liberan estos hombres, le piden a Jesús que lo acompañaran. Pero Jesús no quiso porque Jesús sabía de que ellos iban a servir más estando en su propia casa, en su propia comunidad, hablando de lo que Dios, que ir con Jesús. Y dice que estos fueron los primeros misioneros que Jesús envió, porque estos hombres nunca habían pasado tiempo con Jesús. Imagínense ustedes, yo me pongo a imaginar que aquí la lección dice de que esos hombres hasta se rasgaban con piedras. Pero cuando Jesús los liberó, yo creo que también no solo los liberó de los espíritus, sino que también pienso yo de que el cuerpo como que no había pasado nada, ¿verdad? Porque nuestro Señor Jesucristo es poderoso para hacer todo eso. Y entonces estos hombres no fueron allá. ¿Y qué es lo que hicieron? Ellos fueron a contar lo que Dios había hecho en sus vidas. Yo creo que cuando nosotros nos ponemos en ese lugar donde, como les mencionaba al principio, de que todos nosotros, tenemos algo de qué hablar de lo que Dios ha hecho en nuestras vidas. Yo estoy seguro de que ya sea ustedes, ya sean cosas que les ha pasado en la escuela, tal vez, cosas que les ha pasado, no sé, en el trabajo, para los que trabajan, pero estoy seguro de que tienen mucho que contar de nuestro Señor Jesucristo, de lo que ha hecho en la vida de cada uno de nosotros. Y creo que esa es una buena lección de poder nosotros contar, porque no es lo que nosotros quizás hablamos, lo que la gente se da cuenta, sino que es más que todo los testimonios que nosotros, porque la lección al principio viene hablando de que cualquier otra persona de otra religión podría argumentar de que nosotros estamos equivocados en la Biblia, que así no se interpreta la Biblia o X argumento que pueda tener, pero donde no puede argumentar una persona es de la historia personal, dice, de lo que Dios ha hecho en la vida de cada uno de nosotros, porque estoy seguro de que cada uno tenemos algo que contar de lo que Dios ha hecho en nuestra vida y eso nadie lo puede cambiar, nadie puede argumentar porque cuando nosotros pasamos en esas cosas y muchos de nosotros, yo he escuchado tantas, ¿cómo le llaman estas las personas que cuando cuentan lo que les ha pasado? Testimonios, ¿verdad? Cuando la gente cuenta su testimonio, yo me pongo a pensar, bueno, es posible porque yo también he pasado en lo mismo. Yo no puedo decir que o podría como poner en duda de lo que esa persona esté diciendo, porque es difícil de poner en duda porque esa persona lo que está diciendo, yo quizás no he estado en la misma situación, pero he estado en otra situación donde Dios me ha sacado y digo, eso sí nadie lo puede argumentar y esto es lo que nosotros deberíamos contar también a las personas de lo que Dios ha hecho en nuestras vidas, tal como hicieron estos dos hombres que Dios los liberó de los espíritus que estaban persiguiendo a estos hombres. Si alguien tiene algo, algo que puede agregar, es el tiempo.
Muchas gracias, Abraham. Sí, yo tengo algo también que quería decir. Es muy interesante porque muchas veces pensamos que Jesús llamó a 12 y solamente a 12. Que Jesús llamó solo a esos 12 discípulos para predicar la palabra, pero la realidad es que ellos ni fueron los primeros que Jesús llamó. Jesús llamó a este hombre después de su transformación, le dijo, él fácilmente lo pudiera haber llevado con él, como tú dijiste, pero le dijo que no, que se tiene que quedar para predicar sobre lo que él pasó. Y eso es lo que Dios nos está llamando a cada uno de nosotros. No tenemos que predicar un tema, sino decirle a los demás nuestra historia, qué ha hecho Dios en nuestra vida. ¿Habrá alguien más que tiene algo sobre el martes? Bueno, muchas gracias, Abraham. Marlon, you have Wednesday?
Okay, so creo que es bien importante, y siguiendo lo que decía Abraham, contar nuestra historia y testificar de lo que Dios ha hecho, porque como dijimos y hemos estudiado también otras lecciones, ni los más inteligentes en cualquier tipo de ciencia pueden argumentar algo que tú has vivido, y tú les estás diciendo, eso es lo que Dios ha hecho por mí. Y el título del miércoles es testificar con seguridad. So, no sé, quisiera preguntarle a alguien, al que sea, ¿cómo creen que podemos testificar con seguridad antes de leer estos textos?
Be sure of it.
Ya
And
tienes que,
I'm not even trying to like be funny or anything. Like literally, be sure of what it is that you are preaching about it.
yeah. So, para que alguien más te crea, para que alguien más tenga ese efecto de un testimonio, tú tienes que estar seguro de lo que estás testificando. Vamos a leer rapidito estos textos. El primero es Primera de Juan 5, 11 al 13. Y dice, y este es el testimonio que Dios nos ha dado, vida eterna, y esta vida está en su Hijo. El que tiene al Hijo tiene la vida. El que no tiene al Hijo de Dios no tiene la vida. Estas cosas os he escrito a vosotros que creéis en el nombre del Hijo de Dios, para que sepáis que tenéis vida eterna y para que creáis en el nombre del Hijo de Dios. Hay otros textos aquí que vamos a leer, pero como se dan cuenta aquí, la palabra de Dios nos está diciendo de que si creemos y tenemos a Jesús o Dios el Hijo, tenemos la vida eterna. Y esa es la pregunta que hace aquí en la lección. Dice, ¿qué garantía, qué vemos en estas escrituras que nos da a nosotros la certeza de que tenemos esa salvación? Lo podemos leer, ¿verdad? Y lo podemos creer por fe, pero también se nos va a hacer más fácil creer y aceptar a Jesús y tener fe en Él cuando lo conocemos y podemos luego hablar de eso. Está también el texto que dice en Hebreo 10, 19 al 22. Bueno, déjenme leer el otro, que es el 1 Corintios 15, 1 y 2. Dice, además os declaro, hermanos, el evangelio que os he predicado, el cual también recibisteis, en el cual también perseveráis, por el cual asimismo, si retenéis la palabra que os he predicado, sois salvos si no creíste en vano. So, este es un evangelio, ¿verdad? Que recibimos y que igual nosotros debemos de predicar. Les voy a contar una historia que tiene que ver con el fútbol, porque todo lo que yo aprendo lo puedo relacionar al fútbol y a mi hermana ya está cansada de eso, pero déjenme demostrarles lo que le quiero decir en cuanto a testificar con certeza. Antes de todo esto del COVID, nosotros íbamos a jugar bastante fútbol a una cancha que está cerca de la casa de David Asensio. El Franco Lee se llama el parque. Nosotros íbamos a jugar ahí, Iván sabe del parque que estamos hablando porque él iba con nosotros. Y me gustaba ver ahí porque las canchas eran grandes, estaban bonitas y además de eso, no había tanta gente buena. So, yo podía jugar ahí como un profesional. Me decían el Chicharito, el Chucky Lozano, me decían todo eso, ¿verdad? Y a mí no me gustan esos jugadores, pero ellos eran mexicanos y estos eran los mejores jugadores del mundo para ellos. Me decían, ahí viene el Chicharito. Bueno, íbamos a jugar ahí, la pasábamos bien, pero después me dice David, ¿sabes? Hay otro parque aquí donde juegan bastantes salvadoreños que son adultos y juegan mejor, me dice, por si quieres, if you want to challenge yourself, right? So, vamos a jugar allá. Bueno, vamos a jugar allá. Se hace un poco más difícil. Me comienza a dar un poquito de miedo jugar con esta gente que no se cansa, que juega fuerte y de todo. Y otro día me dice, hey, vamos a ir a otro lugar que es una liga de domingo. Es un Sunday League, donde juegan nada más los domingos. Y hay dos divisiones. La división 2, que es la más baja, y la división 1, que es un poquito más alta. Cuando yo llego ahí y comienzo a ver a los que juegan en la división 1, yo me pongo nervioso. Porque yo estoy, man, yo no puedo correr y jugar así de fuerte, ¿verdad? Me van a hacer pedazos cuando yo entre. Pero me comienza a decir David, lo veo en la línea de la cancha emocionado, caminando para los dos lados, dándoles indicaciones, echándole porras. Y él estaba tan seguro de que iban a ganar. Y yo dije, me sentí como un poquito de miedo, pero a la misma vez cuando me dice, ¿quieres entrar? Le digo al coach que te meta y me dice, ¿quieres entrar? Yo llegué a creer desde que yo acepté, ¿verdad? Dije, no, sí. Y me dice él, mira él cómo juega, él hace esto y hace lo otro. Me dice, mira ese que tiene la línea ahí, es el mejor jugador, me dice que hay. Y entré a jugar y yo entré a la cancha solo un ratito en el segundo tiempo, pero yo ya estaba, no me acuerdo cuál era el marcador, pero desde el momento que yo entré, sabiendo que no era muy bueno, yo ya sabía que íbamos a ganar. I was like, you know what, this game is won, I might as well go in. Pero yo ni conocía muy bien a esta gente. Pero el hecho de que él estaba tan seguro de que ese equipo iba a ganar, yo pensé, cuando terminó el partido, le dije, ¿sabes qué? Le dije, ¿cómo es la cosa de que ahora llegamos a jugar a División 1 en el mejor equipo de toda esta liga? Le dije. Y cuando me vine a dar cuenta, era el peor equipo de la División 1, pero fue tanto la seguridad que tenía él en el equipo que hasta a mí me convenció de algo que no era real. So, de esa misma forma, si ustedes se ponen a pensar, dice aquí la lección que cuando... ¿Dónde está? Ya lo perdí. Pero bueno, no, aquí está, dice. Si por fe hemos aceptado a Jesús y Él vive en nuestros corazones a través de su Espíritu Santo, el regalo de la vida eterna es nuestro hoy. So, cuando nosotros aceptamos a Jesús y tenemos fe en Él, nosotros no estamos esperando a un día lograr la salvación. Es como en el momento que yo le creía a David que ese era el mejor equipo. Yo entré a la cancha pensando, este partido ya está ganado, ¿verdad? Entonces, para mí es muy impresionante. Otra cosa que dice aquí, dice que es un viejo predicador, dice, cuando él se miraba a él mismo, él no podía ver la forma en cómo él iba a ser salvo, pero cuando miraba a Jesús, no veía la posibilidad de perderse, ¿verdad? Cuando tú sabes que hay alguien mucho más grande, con mucho experiencia o que es muy bueno en lo que hace, te da a ti la seguridad de que no vas a perder. Y cuando tú tienes eso seguro y tú hablas y de la misma forma como lo hacía David, tú vienes y hablas de Jesús, sabes que Él hace esto, sabes que Jesús hizo esto conmigo, la gente se va a quedar pensando y preguntándose, ¿debo de yo darle una oportunidad a Jesús entonces? Porque parece que sí he is a big deal, you know, maybe he can do all of this. Y luego ya esa gente se comienza a acercar a Jesús y de la misma forma que nosotros es que ellos pueden ver a través de caminar con Él, de que Jesús es el único que nos puede salvar. Por eso dice Pablo que por Jesús tenemos justificación por la fe y podemos tener paz. Podemos estar seguros de que no tenemos ninguna condenación. Y como dijo este versículo que leí, dice, el que tiene al Hijo tiene la vida y el que no tiene al Hijo de Dios no tiene la vida. Entonces, siempre tendremos también, como esa lección, la oportunidad de hacer nuestras decisiones y podríamos apartarnos de Jesús en algún momento, pero también nos recuerda de que cuando verdaderamente conocemos a Jesús, lo aceptamos y testificamos de Él, se nos va a hacer bastante difícil alejarnos de Él porque vamos a saber que su gracia es inmensa y que es lo único que necesitamos. Hay una partecita más que me gustó aquí de la lección que me impresiona, ya les voy a decir por qué. Dice Isaías, mirad a mí, bueno, el texto que está en Isaías 45:22 dice, mirad a mí y sed salvos, todos los términos de la tierra, porque yo soy Dios y no hay más. Me impresiona esa parte que dice no hay más por una razón. Como decía también Rachel antes, a veces nos preguntamos qué es nuestro propósito en la vida y qué más hay, ¿verdad? Y pienso que tal vez si se parecen un poco a mí, les dará miedo pensar en que no hay nada más en esta vida o no hay nada más después de la muerte. Y el texto aquí lo confirma, no hay nada más, con una excepción. La única excepción es Dios. So, es la mayor razón de vivir y la mayor razón de testificar a alguien más.
Thanks, Marlon. Anybody else have any more comments on Wednesday? Abraham?
Sí, es muy importante lo que viene diciendo Marlon, como la experiencia de lo que le pasó en ese lugar, ¿verdad? De jugar fútbol, la seguridad que David tenía y que le convenció a él, pero en la vida espiritual, en la vida cristiana es muy difícil, ¿verdad? Si nosotros hablamos de Dios con seguridad y sin haber pasado podría decir, sin tener ninguna experiencia con nuestro Señor Jesucristo, es muy difícil, ¿verdad? Porque muchos de ustedes saben que muchos predicadores hasta pueden exagerar en lo que dicen, aunque ellos no habrían tenido esas experiencias. Y es por eso que nosotros cuando dice testificar con seguridad, cuando tú has pasado en cosas hermosas que Dios ha hecho en tu vida, uno testifica con seguridad, uno no va titubeando, como dicen, de que pues la gente puede notar cuando uno está siendo sincero o cuando uno está exagerando en las cosas. Y como nosotros no podemos no exagerar, es simplemente testificar con seguridad, pero de lo que Dios ha hecho en nuestras vidas. Eso es lo que pienso yo de este día, que deberíamos tener mucho cuidado con testificar a Jesús y si no hemos tenido una experiencia con Él.
Muy cierto, Abraham. Gracias. Rachel, did you have something? I saw you on mute. Okay, if not, I also had a thought because I was thinking about a similar story too. Como dice Abraham, tienes que estar seguro de lo que predicas o de lo que compartes. And the beauty of God is that He doesn't have you out here looking dumb. And what I mean by that, for instance, like when a little girl, she goes to school all week and she's like, my parents promised me that we're going to Disney World this weekend. We're going to Disney World, and all week she's telling her friends, hey, we're going to Disney World this weekend. Like it's gonna be nice, it's gonna be fun. And then she comes back to school after that weekend on Monday with braces. She went to the dentist this weekend instead of Disney World. And it's like your friends are like, how was Disney World? I didn't go to Disney World, I went to the dentist. You see what I'm saying? Like God does not have you out here looking dumb, like saying, God has promised this, God has promised He's going to do this and that and this and that. It comes true because you can be sure in God that He fulfills His promises, as Marla and Abraham were saying. So with that, I have a question. Do you have assurance of your salvation? Are you sure that Jesus is going to come for a second time and take us home? Are you sure about that? I don't know if anybody have any comments on that, but if so, if you do, on what do you base it? And if not, why don't you have assurance? Menu, did you have something?
I think I just want to say, I don't remember where I heard it or if I read it. I think it was the pastor last night, but I liked what he said, that, or it says, when I look at myself, I see hopelessness, right? I don't see myself being saved, but when I see Jesus at the cross, I see salvation. And I thought that was just powerful.
Yeah, exactly. I also saw it here in the lesson on Wednesday. I'll just read it, what you just said.
That's what it is.
When I look at myself, I see no possibility of being saved. When I look at Jesus, I see no possibility of being lost. I agree with you, man. That's very key. Anybody else? Anything? If not, all right, we can go to Thursday. And I want to start off Thursday with a quote from the lesson. I have it here, which says, powerful testimonies that have a life-changing impact on others focus on what Christ has done for us, not what we have given up for him. So a lot of times, like, we hear testimonies of like, I had to go through this, I had to sacrifice this, I went through this, and you hear that all throughout the testimony, but then you never hear what Jesus did for them. It's like, okay, yeah, you went through that, you did this, you did that, you had to sacrifice all these things. But wait, where was Jesus in all of this? And so the central theme of our testimonies must always be what Jesus has done for us. And if you had to make any sacrifices, it is most likely because they were harming you. So in reality, they weren't really sacrifices. They can't be really considered sacrifices. So I want to go to John chapter 1, verse 12. So we're going to look at a couple of verses in John, and we're going to look at things that come with receiving Jesus, things that we receive when we receive Jesus. And John chapter 1, verse 12, and I'm going to ask Elvis, do you mind reading that for us? And then I ask Joanna, you want to read John 10, verse 10? And then Karen, you want to read John 14, verse 27? And Ivan, you want to read 1 Corinthians 1:30? So Elvis, if you're on, do you want to read John 1, verse 12?
He said John
Chapter 1, verse 12.
I'm gonna read it in Spanish, that's fine.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Right. Mas a todos los que te recibieron, dio les potestad de ser hechos hijos de Dios, a los que creen en su nombre.
So that first verse, what do we receive when we accept Jesus? What did you guys catch?
I think in English it says the right to be called children of God.
The right to be called children of God. Yes, we are called children of God. I think that's so amazing. That's so amazing. Next verse, 10, verse 10. I think that's Joanna.
Okay, so it says the thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly.
So what do we receive now in this verse when we receive Christ?
Abundant life.
Abundant life. So it's not just a everyday normal life. It's a life more abundant. Next verse, Karen, which is John chapter 14, verse 27. Karen, I don't know if you're on.
What was it again? Sorry.
John chapter 14, verse 27.
Okay, it says, peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid.
All right, so what do we receive now, according to this verse?
Peace.
Peace, definitely. I think that's something we all need. We all need peace. 1 Corinthians 1:30.
So 1 Corinthians 1:30 says, God has united you with Christ Jesus. For our benefit, God made him to be wisdom itself Christ made us right with God. He made us pure and holy, and he freed us from sin.
Did you read 1 Corinthians 1:30?
Yeah, 1 Corinthians 1:30.
Oh, different version. That's my fault. All right. So what do we receive now in this verse? There are a couple of things in this one.
When I read, I think said wisdom, righteousness, sanctification, and redemption.
Yes, definitely. So we receive all of those four. So now if we look at the whole list in its entirety, this is just a small glimpse of all of the things that we receive when we accept Jesus. And so do you think it's a better life to receive Jesus, or it's a better life to live without Jesus? What do you guys think? I don't know. I would definitely say that it is a way better life when we receive Jesus. And I want to pause and meditate on this last question that they asked us in the lesson. Basically, it's asking, what kind of sacrifices have you been called to make when receiving Jesus? And follow-up question on that is, have they been blessings or not? Anybody have any sacrifices that they've ever made for Jesus?
Pues yo creo que con el hecho de estar viviendo nosotros en este mundo lleno de pecados, yo creo que nosotros tenemos que poner más atención a las cosas de Dios que a lo que nosotros queremos como seres humanos. Y yo podría decir que es un sacrificio, porque mientras que estamos en un mundo lleno de pecados, siempre vamos a tener tentaciones, pero mientras que nosotros nos aferramos a las promesas de Dios, yo creo que es la única manera que nosotros podemos decirle que no a las cosas del mundo, ¿verdad? Y es un sacrificio como ser humano, pero si nos agarramos de la mano de Dios, yo creo que todo es posible.
Definitely. Muchas gracias, Abraham. Anybody else? I can tell you one of mine. One of the sacrifices I had to make was moving. I thought my whole life I was going to live in Houston, and that's exactly what I wanted. But when God called me, first I went to Keene, and then I went to Arkansas, and now I'm in Michigan. And so it's just been a wild journey. But I have to say that I have truly been blessed by making these sacrifices. I do miss Houston. I miss all of you guys, but I have grown so much within. And I know that God wanted me to make these, and again, I say sacrifices. Throughout it all, I found my calling, found my wife. So man, it's been a blessing throughout this entire journey. And in reality, when you look back at it, at first I was very afraid to move. But when I look back at it, I'm like, I'm so glad I did that. It does not feel like a sacrifice at all. It is a better life with Jesus. It is a life more abundant. Anybody have any other things that they've had to sacrifice for Jesus?
I think growing up, sacrifices that I had to make was just bad friendships, right? I mean, they're leading me astray. And I mean, even in college, I had some friends that were leading me astray. And, one day Grace told me, it's like, hey, are those friendships, are you helping them in any way, or are they just leading you astray? And I had to think about it. And I realized that it was me who was, being led away. And it was a sacrifice for me. I really enjoyed being around those guys, but I realized that it wasn't a healthy friendship for me. And I had to step away from it. There's a point where you got to make that decision. And I saw it as a sacrifice, but ultimately it was definitely a blessing in my life.
Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else? Any other sacrifices that they've had to make for Jesus?
And kind of like Abraham said, and just growing up, there's things that as Christians we say no to, and it can be, like things that are daily habits for people, outside of church, or you get invited to go somewhere, on a Saturday or something like that. So there's always these things that you, or at least I felt like, man, I can't participate in that, or I can't do this. So I feel like, those are sacrifices as well. But in the end, just like everything else, it's for our own good, and it's a blessing when we make that decision.
And in most cases, what you have to give up is a lot less than what you receive. You always get more than what you give up.
Yeah, that's what the lesson says. It says that it's difficult, the Christian life, because you do have to make certain sacrifices, but the reward always is gonna outweigh, that sacrifice.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that because, a lot of my friends are like, oh, well, the weekends, let's go make plans. Saturday's the best day. Let's go do all these fun things, and a lot of times I have to say no. If we want to hang out, it can't be on Saturday. I have to go to church. And, I'm missing out on like those things and sacrificing that. But I'm also, gaining something else, a life at church, a life with God, a family over there at church, I may not be able to go to watch a movie on Saturday, but I'm over there at church sitting next to my family, And right now it doesn't seem very important, but I know like later on it's something very, very important.
Hey, thanks you guys for sharing. Anybody else? Any other sacrifices that you've had to make? Have they been blessings? Have they not? I'll tell you another one of mine. I remember growing up, I would, and if my mom's listening, sorry, but I would sneak over some pepperoni pizza because I was like, man, I can't give that up. Can't give it up. And that's a sacrifice that I made. And now when I look at the news, what swine and what they have inside them and all that stuff, and I see the documentaries, I'm like, oh, I'm so thankful that I don't eat that anymore. So I feel like everything that's in the Bible that God is telling us to get away from, it's for our blessing. We may not see it, but it really, really is. He doesn't just put a rule and say, hey, I don't want you to do this. No, there's a reason for that. There's a reason, and it's for our benefit. So definitely that. Not even a sacrifice.
Or like Pokemon Go.
Yeah, gave that up too. Definitely. Gave that up too. Anybody else? Anything?
Just saying your mom said she's listening in YouTube, so.
Oh, well, that's fine. I'll call her later. Anybody else? Anything that that you guys have experienced with following Jesus? If not, I'll go ahead and end with. Oh, did you have something?
I was gonna say it, but I guess I'll say it. Well, it was just like a couple of years ago that I was trying to finish up an EMT class during the summer, and apparently I found out like the first week that I had to go to go to class on Saturday, and I mean it was an experience, but when they told us, I just remember that day. It was kind of hard to hear, but I remember that the good thing is that a couple other people couldn't be there Saturday either, so it wasn't just me. So I felt kind of better about it. But I remember when they would ask me, they would be like, "Well, what about you?" Because most of them was because they worked or something, But for me, it was church and the Sabbath, They would ask me, and I would be like, "Oh man, I go to church and all that." And then I understood where they're coming from because they didn't grow up in church or anything, but they were all like, so what? It's just 3 Saturdays, And I was like, I didn't really respond to any of it, but the point is that at that point, it was kind of really tough to make a sacrifice, kind of like you're saying about it. And at the end of it, I feel like it was the best thing. But yeah, that's. Yeah.
And would you say your life is better now?
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Anything else to share? Anything that you guys have gone through? If not, Marlon?
Oh no, I was just checking something, but if before you pray and everybody leaves, the Sociedad de Jovenes is at 6:30 and we have a Kahoot, so get on Zoom if you can.
Yeah, guys, I definitely want to make that same invitation. You know, I know a lot of you guys watch on YouTube, but it's a lot more intimate, and it's cool to see all of you guys. You guys don't even have to turn on your cameras. Like, just join us. Join us on Zoom. We want to see you guys. So yeah, to close out, I just want to read a verse. It's in Galatians. Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. And it's actually the final verse here on the lesson. Galatians chapter 2, verse 20, which says, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live. Yet not I, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I hope you guys caught that verse. It is no longer us who live, but Christ who lives through me. And I want to end with just two questions. And just to meditate on, but truly meditate on it. If you live by this verse, as in, if you read this verse and from now on you would decide, I'm going to live by this verse, Christ lives in me and not me no more. If you live by this verse, what would change in your life? As in, what wouldn't be there anymore, or what would be there now? All right, that's the first question. Second question. Why don't you change it now? That's just something we should all meditate on. We should strive to live like Jesus. May our lives be a living testimony for all to see and hear. Anybody else have any comments or questions, anything concerning any day of the lesson? Anything you guys want to share? If not, well, I just want to thank you guys for joining. 6:30 AY. Join us on Zoom. We want to see you guys. We want to do the Al Comenzar la Semana together. I think that's really fun. It's really cool. So we'll see you guys over there. And Marlon, is your dad here? Is that your dad? Hermano Larín, si nos puede tener la oración para concluir.
Claro que sí. Oremos. Gracias, Señor, damos por tu amor y misericordia con nosotros. Gracias por permitirles a estos jóvenes trabajar juntos y estudiar tu palabra. Señor, bendíceles y que ellos siempre puedan tener el buen deseo, el interés de conocerte más y mejor cada día. Gracias también te damos por la bendición de tener a Jonathan ahí apoyándolo, Señor. Ayúdalos de manera que ellos puedan, Señor, por tu gracia y misericordia cada día, aprender más de ti y así tener la experiencia también de compartir a Cristo con otros. Gracias por ser con ellos, por ser con nosotros, por bendecirnos ampliamente. Ayúdanos siempre de modo que nuestro testimonio pueda ser un testimonio fiel a los que con quienes entramos, Señor, en cualquier vínculo con quienes nos relacionamos diariamente. Gracias desde el cielo porque tú nos has llamado a ser parte de este pueblo que se prepara cada día para el pronto encuentro contigo. Gracias por tu bondades con nosotros. Danos siempre el privilegio de caminar a tu lado y poder compartirte en el nombre de Jesús. Amén.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, everyone. Y para los que son jóvenes de corazón, no tenemos un age limit, un límite de edad, así que si se quieren unir con nosotros, aquí vamos a estar a las 4 cada sábado, así que lo esperamos también. And 3. Oh yeah, it's 4 for me. My bad. Y la sociedad jóvenes a las 6:30. Ahí nos vemos.
See ya.